Hey guys, Night Cruiser MA on a beautiful spring day. It's about 55 degrees, and with a light jacket on and a fairing, you're in pretty good shape for riding right about now. It's, gosh, I've really missed riding. And I just got done making the video talking about why I bought this bike, and so now it's probably not a surprise to almost any of you to hear me say this, but I want to tell you why I'm selling it, or actually why I sold it. So, the reason that I'm selling this bike is that if you listened to my previous video and you heard me talk about the things like the scarcity of the bike, the beauty of the bike, all of the performance upgrades and stuff that I put on it, the absolute just originality and uniqueness of this bike, the fact that I wanted to just stick it in my living room and look at it, I mean, those are all really interesting reasons for owning a motorcycle. And if this, what are we doing? What's the thing? Okay. Oh, what a beautiful day. What a beautiful day. If the problem is this, that it's really nice to have beautiful motorcycles, and I've had my share of them. I really have. I'll tell you one bike that is really underrated, and you're going to completely laugh at me, but in my view, it was a really beautiful bike, and that was my Hyosung Aquila GV250. Now, yes, it was a 250. Yes, it's a Korean bike. Yes, it's a beginner bike. But the proportions of that bike, there's just something about it that was just really, really nice. The paint job was really nice. It was a really nice ride. Now, maybe it's me being romantic because it was my first bike. I don't know. But I always thought that the proportions on that bike were just really nice. Maybe it was derivative of Harley and all that, but it just looked really nice. Regardless, here's the problem, guys. If this behaved like a normal bike, if this were as nice as a normal bike, I wouldn't be getting rid of it. But my reasoning for buying it, it's rare, it's unique, I want to stick it in my living room and just look at it. Those reasons are not good enough to hold on to a bike that has nearly a $29,000 MSRP. A $29,000 MSRP. It's just not a good enough reason. I'm not saying that's not close to what I paid for it, but that is the result of the bike and all of the upgrades that were put into it. It's not a good enough reason to have that money tied up. And so the reason that I sold it, and yes, I'm putting miles on the bike, but the purchaser knows that. That's not an issue. It's got 425 miles on it. It'll have like 440 miles on it, or 450 miles when the purchaser gets it. So it's not a good enough reason. And here's the issue. The issue is that, again, so there are some major downsides to this bike. Major. One of them is that the low speed handling is atrocious. It really makes you work for your enjoyment. I don't mean low speed like this. This is fine. 30 miles an hour going through twisties, it's fine. In the parking lot, oh my gosh, it's a beast. It's a beast. I mean, it's doable. Of course, I've done it. It's not like it's not scary or anything. It's just annoying to have something that doesn't want to handle well, and there's a few reasons for that. Obviously, it's got a fairly steep brake, and it obviously has a pretty big wheel, but it also has a really kind of a twitchy throttle, and it also has a clutch engagement way out at the tip, which gives you very little room to play with as far as any sort of friction zone. So puttering around the parking lot, not ideal, but again, not a good reason to get rid of a bike. I mean, I've had bikes before that were pretty lousy in parking lots, no big deal. But the main reason, I think, is the fact that it's not as enjoyable to ride. So the wind management on these cross bikes have never been good. In my opinion, I don't know, maybe other people have different opinions. This fairing, for whatever reason, although it's a beautiful fairing, it really is beautiful. I really do like this design. But it has never been good at getting the air to go where it should. Now, this windshield, this is the V-Stream I don't know, National Cycle V-Stream windshield, I believe, is truly the best windshield I've ever come across for wind management on a cross bike. I just think it's fantastic. I would put this on a cross country, obviously on the Magnum, things like that. The stock windshield that you get is just horrible. I got an Arlen Ness flip windshield at first. We'll get to that as the other issue that I have with this bike. And that bike that windshield was just terrible. It did not alleviate the buffeting issue. And beyond that, it was so blurry and so messed up looking through it that you couldn't even park. I mean, everything was just like, blah. It's like you felt like you were drunk every time you looked through it. So I replaced it with this, and this has been a pretty good windshield, but I do remember the first time I took this on the highway, and it was like, oh my gosh, I was doing like 60 miles an hour, and I was getting such a headache because my head was just getting battered around everywhere. So there's that. There's the fact that Victories, even though I've got cams in here, even though I've got an air filter, even though I've got Lloyd's timing system, even though I've got did I say cams? Power commander and all that, and pipes. It's still, it just still chugs. It's not a good low torque bike, and I just like bikes that are torquey. It's the same reason I don't like turbos in cars. I've had a lot of cars that are turbos. I've got one right now, and you get so much of your power is coming at really high RPMs, and it's like, yeah, if you have the right kind of car where that's fun, great, but I'm not sure that that's what I'm always looking for. So anyway, and then let's get to the suspension. Now, you guys noticed in my Magnum review video, in my Let's Ride, that I found the suspension was a little bit on the rough side. Well, this suspension is even lower than that one was. So take that and then double it, and what you get, and yes, I have even overpressured the shock, and yes, I have overeaten as well, and I'm a fat guy on a bike complaining about this and that. But the reality is, guys, that it's not relaxing when you have to constantly scan the road for any little imperfection. I know, obviously, we scan the road anyway, being motorcyclists, but I don't have to do that as actively on an Indian as I do on this, because I know that any dip in the road is going to cause me to get substantially shorter. By the time I get off the bike, I'm 2'6", and it's awkward. It's awkward to walk into a restaurant when you're 2'6", and your helmet is bigger than you are. It's not ideal. So the suspension just made it like unfun for me. And then let's look at the absolute biggest factor. The absolute reason why I decided to sell this bike is that Indian came out with the Chieftain Limited, which I had seen before, and it was like, okay, that's nice. They've got the unbalanced fender. That's cute. Okay, very nice. But then I saw the 116 kit, and I rode it. I was the second person at Mom's, including employees, the second person at Mom's to ever ride a 116, to take it for a test ride. Something that they weren't traditionally letting customers do, because I think they only had one or two of them at the time. And I took it out, and I was sold. I was like, this is pretty darn good. And when I looked at it, the bike that I originally was going to get was actually kind of like a bronze mist color. I call it beige, but I'm sure there's a different word for it. And but I couldn't get a trunk that matched it, and I kept looking at this sort of blackish metallic with red and gray pinstripes, and I'm like, if I combined that, if I got the Indian Chieftain Limited in a 116 with those pinstripes and that front wheel, because I love the looks of the front wheel on this bike. It's just a remarkable looking wheel. It's just got a lot of character, and it's cool. But the Chieftain Limited also has a similar sort of setup. It's maybe not as flashy as this, love that. Then I could actually really, I mean, as you guys know, I sold my Indian Roadmaster in 2017 because I had these two new bikes. I had the Octane and I had the Magnum. I was really, really enjoying the Octane. The Magnum I wasn't riding as much, but I was still riding a little bit here and there. I don't have that many miles on this, so obviously I wasn't riding it too much. But if I could really and truly combine my love for Indians and their powertrain and their handling with, and their suspension, with kind of the unique looks of what I have in this, I don't think it looks as good as this. I'm not sure. This is all completely subjective, of course. But I find that there are very few bikes out there that look as good to me as this bike does. But man, you do pay the price for those looks. You really do. The slammed look, the suspension is just not forgiving at all. And the reality is that if you're riding a motorcycle just for the look of it, well, that's kind of silly. That's kind of dumb. So because I wasn't doing that, and because I like to just relax and enjoy my motorcycles, I decided that I wanted to go back to Indian, as I knew I probably would. And I was able to do that because I was able to get a Chieftain Limited that basically fulfilled all my needs here. I will say, by the way, I love the seat on this bike. I'm not sure what seat comes with the Magnum X1. Is it, I don't know if it's like a custom seat or if it's just the cross-country tour seat. I don't think it's the tour seat, but I do love the seat. I think it's just really comfortable for me. If the suspension were better, if the handling geometry were better, I might have kind of held on to it, but no, I'm an Indian guy at heart. I'm going to keep my Victory Octane. It's a fairly cheap bike, and it's just so much fun. It's a lot of fun to ride, and it's really loud, which I love. And I'm going to get a different bike. I'm going to get a replacement for this bike. I know, shock, I know. The dealer was like, ho hum, yep, okay. Getting another bike, I'm really shocked. So I will see you guys soon on that bike, but that is my reasoning for getting rid of this, and maybe you'll understand, maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe you'll think I'm a complete bonehead for buying a bike and then getting rid of it a year later. If you think that, then you just don't know me and you haven't watched my videos, because that's basically what I do. It's terrible, but it's me. I just thought I would enjoy this more than I do, and I'm not going to hang on to it I mean, literally I can take a picture of this and hang it on my wall and just stare at it, but it's not worth having monthly payments for. So that is my thinking, guys, on why I'm selling this bike. Indian came out with a perfect replacement. I was never truly happy with this, and I think the time is right. Oh, I love spring. I just love the look of everything in spring. I really do. But I believe the timing is right for me to move on from this. And there will be a new bike in the stable shortly. And I will have to have fun explaining that one. In fact, I've got two bikes right now that you guys don't know about. So it's just the constant thing of, like, you know, what does Ev own now? I don't even know where I'm going, so don't wait for me. I guess I'm going to go left, see what happens. So anyway, that's why I'm selling it, guys. Am I sad to see it go? Yeah, sort of. But I am not, you know, I hate cul-de-sacs just because of dogs. Just because I feel like people aren't going to have their dogs leashed. And they should. There's a leash law, but I always have this idea that I'm going to end up turning around in the bottom of a cul-de-sac and there's going to be this dog just like chasing me around. I actually really love dogs now because my wife has kind of trained me to love dogs, but I still don't want them chasing my bike. I don't want to hurt them and I don't want them to hurt me, so, you know. Oh my gosh, I could ride out here forever. I really could, but the only problem is I have to I have to go back to work because Sally needs a ride over to Mom's house to pick up her bike. It had the 500-mile service done, and it had just some general kind of springtime maintenance done to it. So she's gonna get a ride over and then pick it up and bring it home. So I need to go back to work to go bring her there. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm sorry to see this go. I barely knew you, Magnum X1, but I think it's for the best. Alright guys, I shall talk to you later. Have a wonderful day, and do look forward to me talking about 2 bikes that you guys don't know I have. There's actually 3, but I just told you guys about my Indian Chieftain Limited, so that's not really a secret anymore. And yeah, I will talk to you later. Let's have some fun this summer. I'm looking forward to it. Oh man, on a smooth street, going through the corners, this is a really nice bike. Does not have any clearance. It scrapes pipes all the time. Absolutely all the time. I scrape pipes coming out of my driveway, but it is a lot of fun. Oh. With infinite money, I would hold on to this bike, but I'm not quite at the infinite stage. I'm still at the, standard amount of money, but really, really poor priority sort of thing. So, not quite at the infinite part yet.